Thank you. The Queen arrives later this evening here in Canberra for the start of her royal tour down under. Both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader have returned to the capital to greet her. It seems the one thing that all sides of politics can agree on is that there will be a warm welcome for Her Royal Highness.
Whether you're a Republican, as I am, or not, he's an admirable person who you've got to take your hat off to. Credit given where it's due, and I think they'll get a very warm welcome here in Canberra and in Perth.
I'm very pleased that she'll be going to Duntroon for the unfurling of the royal colours there. Also, significantly, she'll be going to the Australian War Memorial. That's very important. And in Perth, of course, I'm looking forward to seeing her take part in the Choggum formalities, and as the member for Perth and West Australia, looking forward to the barbecue on the foreshore, which I think will be, certainly in the eyes of Western Australians, the highlight of the tour.
She's very well respected by Australians, and I think she's going to be tremendously warmly received.
Well, in a moment, we'll hear what the Republican movement thinks about the Queen's visit down under, whether this is the time for them to start revving up their campaign again. First, one of Australia's best-known monarchists, Professor David Flint, is the convener of Australians for a Constitutional Monarchy. Joins me now. Professor Flint, thanks for your time. How significant do you see this visit from the Queen?
I think it is very significant. She's a highly regarded person. She's been sovereign of this country for longer than most people can remember. She's been sovereign for more than half the life of the nation, and I think she brings with us a notion of stability, but also care, and the fact that the Crown is a central institution in the constitutional system which is above politics.
As many have pointed out, though, it's a reminder that we have a head of state who only visits Australia rarely. The last visit was 2006. Is this an argument for having an Australian head of state, someone who lives here?
Not in the slightest. As you know, that question was in dispute in the referendum, and ACM mounted very strong legal arguments for the proposition that the Governor-General is head of state, and in fact the Governor-General, when she travels overseas, is always received as and held out to be the Australian head of state. The system works very well. We have at the centre our oldest institution, which came in 1788, and we are a Westminster Federation. We need this important check and balance. As Winston Churchill said, the Crown is important not so much for the power it wields, but the power it denies others. It's part of those great checks and balances of our system. In 1999, the Republicans had carte blanche to work out the best model they want. They had a massive campaign. It was very well funded. It distracted the politicians for almost a decade, and it was rejected by the people nationally in every state and 72% of electorates. Since then, the Republicans have been unable to work out what precisely they want.
Well, getting back to the point you're making, though, that the Governor-General is the head of state, what then is the Queen?
The Queen is the monarch or sovereign. In 1907, a bench of the High Court of Australia, consisting of founding fathers led by Sir Samuel Griffiths, set out the formula which we have today. That is, the King or Queen is the sovereign. The Governor-General is the constitutional head of the Commonwealth, and the governors are the constitutional heads of state. Now, that works very well in the sort of system we have. If the Republicans want to change that, let them work out a new model and show it to the people and persuade the people that what they are arguing for will provide at least as good governance as we have, and preferably even better governance.
But are you saying the Queen has no powers in our Constitution? I mean, what does sovereign mean? Why do we still need the Queen?
The Queen is the centre. She sets the standards. The whole standards of the representatives of the Crown are set by the Queen because of her personal excellence. But in addition, she is the one who appoints them. Unusually for any Commonwealth country, each of the premiers is entitled to advise the Queen in relation to the appointment of and removal of the governors. That's something which eluded the states and the Commonwealth for a very long time, from the Statute of Westminster in the 30s down to 1986 because no one could work out what to do. It was the Queen herself who advised and agreed to a solution which works admirably, so that the Queen in Australia is advised by 7 heads of government.
And Professor Flint, finally, there's one of the key receptions for the Queen is taking place here at Parliament House on Friday evening. I read this morning in the newspaper that you had not received an invitation. As I said at the outset, you're one of Australia's best-known monarchists. Has that been rectified?
If that's the correct word, it has been rectified. I did not expect or insist on an invitation, but it was very nice to receive one to the function. And let me just add this. The big issues in the constitutional system don't relate to the Crown, which works very well. They relate to freedom of political communication, which is under threat. They relate to the federal balance, which is not working well. And they also relate to the disempowerment of the people between elections. Those are the big constitutional issues which people ought to be looking at.
All right, Professor David Flint, convener of Australians for a Constitutional Monarchy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, for the other side of this argument, we're now joined by